Hi everyone. Chapter 4. Toothless to the rescue. Toothless had spent the last 10 minutes muttering to himself at the top of the mast. At first he was so full of self-pity he had no time to worry about what was happening to his masters. "Nobody loves Toothless," he said to himself. But then the noises from the Roman ship got louder and the boys did not reappear, and he started to get worried. When he heard Hiccup's yell for help, the little dragon called off his strike. He zoomed off his perch and flew to the ship, and even from the height he was flying, his sharp little eyes immediately spotted that way down below on the deck there was a large Roman centurion who was holding Fishlegs by the legs. The centurion was about to execute Fishlegs with his sword. Toothless folded his wings back and went into a dive, just as he might do if he were hunting mackerel or herring. His target was the centurion's head, and by the time he reached it, he was going so fast he was a little dragon blur. He tore into the helmet, sending feathers from the plume flying in all directions, and he bit and scratched as hard as he could. Not quite sure how he can bite without teeth. The centurion let out a yell of surprise and rage. For a moment he was knocked off balance, but he recovered when he realized his attacker was only a very small dragon. Fishlegs swung desperately from side to side, trying to break free, but the centurion was made of tough stuff. He tightened his grip on Fishlegs' ankle and swung his sword around, trying to hit Toothless with it. So Hiccup grabbed a passing Slitherfang and shoved it up the centurion's tunic. The centurion let out a bellow and dropped Fishlegs. Well, wouldn't you? A Slitherfang in the knickers is no laughing matter. The centurion hopped from foot to foot, clutching his bottom and squealing like a pig as he tried to catch hold of the nibbling, wriggling, scratching Slitherfang in his underwear. "Let's get out of here," howled Hiccup, hauling Fishlegs to his feet. He also picked up a Roman helmet that was lying on the deck nearby. They were going to have some explaining to do to Gobber when they got back, and this might help. There you can see the centurion with the Slitherfang. All around them there was chaos, with dragons attacking Romans and Romans attacking dragons and trying to put out the fires the dragons were making. Hearts racing as fast as rabbits, panting and stumbling. Hiccup and Fishlegs ran as fast as they could to the spot where they had boarded the ship. The rope was still in place. The hopeful Puffin would be waiting down below on the other side. Fishlegs got to the edge first and scrambled over. Hiccup was only a few steps away from him when a hand grabbed the back of his tunic, ripping out his pocket. Hiccup's book, How to Speak Dragonese, fell onto the deck. Hiccup stopped to reach down and pick it up, and came face to face with the glitteringly triumphant eyes of the thin prefect through the iron visor of his helmet. Hiccup's heart turned to ice. The prefect was holding on to the other end of the book. "Aha!" spat the thin prefect. They both pulled. "Let go!" hissed the thin prefect. "You can't win, you know. This is mine now." Hiccup could have let go, but this was his book after all, and despite his terror, some deep, indignant rage made him hang on strongly until something sharp and iron shot out from beneath the thin prefect's cloak and cut into the back of Hiccup's hand. Hiccup screamed and jumped backwards. The book split in two, and before the thin prefect could pull himself together and catch hold of him again, Hiccup scrambled away and over the edge of the ship. There wasn't even time to climb down the rope. Hiccup swung from it and then let go, crashing onto the deck of the hopeful Puffin some way below. Fishlegs cut the rope that tied them to the ship, and their little boat was pulled away so swiftly by the current that she went into one of her spins. "Where's Toothless?" asked Hiccup. Toothless had been held up. His foot was caught in the centurion's chin strap, and for a moment they were tied together, and Toothless had quite a bumpy ride because the centurion was bumping up and down like an octopus with chickenpox as he tried to get rid of the Slitherfang in his knickers. Toothless finally snapped the chin strap with his hard little gums, and to Hiccup's relief, as the hopeful Puffin twirled around for the 5th time, looking for all the world as if she was dancing, Toothless came screeching up to the edge of the ship towards them at the speed of a flying arrow. "Oh, thank Thor!" Hiccup exclaimed joyfully. But 1 minute Toothless was flying through the air like a stormy petrel in a hurry. The next, a net weighted with stones appeared out of nowhere, wrapped itself round the little dragon in mid-air, and brought him back down onto the deck of the Roman ship, as if struck by a spear. "Toothless!" cried Hiccup. 2 figures appeared over the edge of the ship. One was the thin prefect holding half of the How to Speak Dragonese book. The other was a Roman soldier. In one hand he held a trident, which is like a spear, but it has 3 points, tri. In the other he held a net. And within that net, struggling and biting and turning wild somersaults in his desperation to be free, was Toothless. The hopeful Puffin made another crazy turn, and Hiccup gazed at his captured dragon in despair until the Roman ship was swallowed up by the fog, and Hiccup could see him no more. Gosh, dramatic. Okay, How to Speak Dragonese by Hiccup Horrendous Haddock III. So, we have the next few pages are taken from Hiccup's book, and it's got some dragon vocabulary. So, munch munch means eat, crap a crack cack means poo, dobbly wobbly or botty bum is bottom, no like it, me like it, I don't like it, I do like it. Yum yum on de bum is to bite somebody on the bottom. Yum yum on de tum is to bite someone on the stomach. And it goes on. Bath time. When a dragon has spent the whole day in a mud wallow and they then want to curl up in your bed, you have no option. You have to give them a bath. Good luck. You're going to have to be cunning and use psychology. Okay. All right. I'm going to carry on with the story. Back on Berk. By the time the hopeful Puffin had stopped turning round in circles, the fog had started to lift a little. Half an hour later, the mist had vanished entirely, and they could see for miles in every direction. The Roman ship was nowhere to be seen. The water was as cold as ice again, so there was no further danger of bumping into any shark worms. They had not gone as far off course as Hiccup had thought. They set off towards the distant silhouette of Berk to the north. Fishlegs took the rudder because Hiccup was too depressed to do anything. Hiccup sat staring at his half of How to Speak Dragonese. All that work, all that time spent dragon watching at the Wild Dragon Cliff, ripped in two. He was trying not to think of what might be happening to Toothless on board the Roman ship. Toothless hated the idea of being trapped so much. Hiccup even had to leave the door open when they went to bed, and now there he was, most likely locked up in that horrible iron cage. "We just had an argument too," thought Hiccup in total misery, "and he flew to our rescue, and now I might never see him again." Horror Cow finally woke up from her deep sleep. "Did you get that helmet?" she yawned. "Not exactly," replied Fishlegs grimly. "It's a long story." In her strange, spinning and zigzagging fashion, the hopeful Puffin drew nearer to the little island of Berk. The Isle of Berk has been home to the hooligan tribes for so long as to seem like forever. It is one of the smallest inhabited islands in the barbaric archipelago, and perhaps the best way to describe it is wet. There are 28 words for rain in the hooligan language, and Berk is the kind of place where the sea is always wandering up onto the land. Even at the highest point, you can find scallop shells and dolphin's bones thrown up by some gigantic tide or storm. So what with the rain pouring down constantly from above and the sea sneaking up from below, the hooligans spent most of their lives up to their knees in muddy salt water. As they got nearer to Burke, they didn't have time to feel sorry for themselves. The hopeful Puffin was in difficulties. Never a very seaworthy boat, she had 2 big knocks. First, when she was rammed by Snotlout's boat, Sparrowhawk, then when Hiccup jumped down onto her decks from the Roman ship. She was taking on water even faster than normal. Despite Hiccup and Fishlegs bailing out the water as quickly as they could with the helmets, by the time they reached Hooligan Harbour, she sank entirely, and they had to swim the last 100 metres, Hiccup holding Fishlegs up, because, unusually for a Viking, Fishlegs had never quite mastered the doggy paddle. And to make matters even worse, Gobber was standing on the harbour wall watching them come in, arms folded, brows as low as Thor's thunderclouds. When the hopeful Puffin disappeared beneath the water, he looked as if he might explode. "It hasn't been a very successful day, has it?" moaned Fishlegs as they struggled out of the sea and onto the rocks. "At least we didn't meet any shark worms after all." Gobber was not amused. Okay, end of part 1.